JP, GP,
JP continue with these legislative elections with the period 2022-2026. This Central American nation will decide their path. Remember that we have correspondence around the different departments of the country and in the two autonomous regions of this country.
welcome to this expansion of this information about the general election in Nicaragua, giving you minute by minute the information. In fact, we join this activity by casting our vote, and Robert also.
Yeah. I also participate in this electoral process in Nicaragua that actually it's still continuing. Some polling station boards continue to receive people. Well, just in the case that there is no more citizens who wants to vote, and JPMAS is informing through all these links the information to all the people who is watching us. And we also are sharing more information in our social networks.
Okay, actually, in many voting centers, they started the scrutiny, uh, which is part of the celebration. And if there are voters, they are going to continue. We, of course, are going to give you all the impressions and the way it finishes. And talking about counting, in the National Computing Center, several political parties are gathering.
We have the first report of how the National Electoral Council um, is given the first steps to know how this process of scrutiny is going. We're going to see how this process is being developed. Remember all the people who are broadcasting or having a transmission of this program, right? We have the Anglo-Saxon part, and we also have the JP English, and you can follow us in our old platforms. We have the report. We have a link that in the Nicaraguan Council, Electoral Council.
This is the second stage of the process. This is the computing area in which I'm going to explain to you how the scrutiny process is undergoing. In my hand I had, and in this election it's on a digital process. Each ballot has, each protocol has actually a code in which we can validate. In each ballot, the information get into the system automatically. The information is given to the people in the computers who will enter the code to validate the information of these ballots. It is important to know that in this election, the record that we are having of these ballots is in the system. since we have to enter the code 2 times, and if the second time doesn't match with the first one, so the person in charge is gonna check the ballot and see if the same values are in the ballot. This person with a lot of professionalism will see if it's a valid ballot. If in any case this information doesn't match, another person is gonna check if it's a valid uh, ballot. It is also important to indicate that these revisions will be going through different areas. Each prosecutor from its own area will be able to see the ballot in a digital way, so they can double check if everything is correct and making sure that the process is going through with transparency, and we can continue to the different areas to see how it works.
This is the ambience, the environment that in the National Computing Center located in the Electoral Council, we saw one of the representative of this council giving an explanation about the counting of the ballots. And they are, this is part of how the electoral calendar has been developed, and it includes the closing of this electoral civic process. And we are going to give information about the first bulletin, informative bulletin of
In
the
fact,
Electoral
all
Council.
the alliances parties are waiting for the counting of the ballots, the votes, with their respective polling stations, with the scrutiny act and counting votes. And that's why all Nicaraguans are expecting how this process, how this important moment is going to be seen, and what are the good
Exactly, Mandy
expectations.
Pravia. And talking about all this electoral process, during the day, the authorities were present, okay, exercising the suffrage. And we had the President Daniel Ortega and also candidate of this presidency. Roberto Salina is on the other part of the studio, and he comments about how many personalities of this country came to the voting centers.
That is correct. During the day, we were able to see the influx of people and the candidates that were taking part in this electoral contest, running for president and vice president, and also some personalities who take part in the different who are politicians in Nicaragua. And like when we saw President Daniel Ortega exercising his right to vote in Managua, there we have the images when President Ortega was attending the voting center with the vice president. can see the members of the polling station and the president taking his ID to give to the president of the table, in this case, of the polling station board. Then the president give this ID document to the first member of the table to make sure that the
And
information
this is
is in the
how
electoral
we
roll.
see this process is being developed in a quick way, and we see the images through JP Más, how the members are receiving the ID documentation of the Nicaraguan candidate and the Nicaraguan president of the National Front in Nicaragua. These are some of the modernizations, which is a unique ballot, and this is the Latin American way, which is very different from national and international modernizations that this electoral council has.
Well, effectively, after President Daniel Ortega took his vote, he mentioned that the Constitution is as the basis to exercise this kind of process and how people have the liberty to choose their candidates. He also talked about the democracy. He talked about how well was taking place this electoral
And as the president has a democratic tradition since 1984, approximately 49 that candidates or elections, whether general or departmental. Remember that we have in this country two autonomous regions, and they have their regional elections. So, Roberto?
That is correct. President Daniel Ortega mentioned the 49 elections that have been ongoing since 1984, and that particularly in the Caribbean coast, they have their own autonomy, as in the north, like in the south, in which they decide and they choose their authorities who are going to lead the regions. But also we're going to see more details of the message that President Daniel Ortega gave after admitting his right to the vote.
Dear brothers, Nicaraguan, dear families, dear brothers, we have seen our national anthem that reminds us and compromises us with these verses where very clearly we say and we swear no shed of brother's blood, no shed on brother's blood. Our glossary by color pendant. May never will shed on brother's blood. Never. And here we have the vote. The vote doesn't kill anybody. The vote doesn't cause any wound in anybody. The vote doesn't call on terrorism. Never. The vote doesn't call on to make roadblocks on the roads and the economy to be paralyzed and the families to be destroyed. The vote doesn't call on torture. Pub- Publicly torture people. We can't forget after many years, we can't forget to those who saw the terror, who didn't respect our anthem, and they boasted filming the destruction, filming the murders, defending the roadblocks publicly. They didn't have a shame, neither dignity to families and to the motherland, torturing young people, women, citizens of Nicaragua, and then spraying of fuel to get naked, splashing, lately burning them. Everybody, everybody looked, everybody saw it, everybody lived it. We could reestablish the peace.
Well, we saw part of the speech that President Daniel Ortega transmit to the Nicaraguan citizens after exercising his right to vote. He emphasizes the electoral processes and following the democracy to solve the solutions among the people and the nations, and always calling for the democracy in this nation, expressing that the tradition in Nicaragua of the elections since 1984 in Nicaragua. He also emphasizes that these electoral processes cannot stop and that they have to continue, and that the next year the municipal elections to choose mayor, vice mayor, and council members who partake in the local governments. And in March 2023, the elections are going to be held on the Caribbean coast of in that region, who is inhabited mostly by indigenous people.
Yes, in fact, many Nicaraguans in the international national context, we could appreciate the speech of sovereignty that Nicaraguan citizens have participated in this process, in this 2022-2026 process.
It is like this, Mandy. It was an electoral roll approved for 4.4 million of inhabitants to exercise their vote today. By the way, talking about this civic process, Nicaraguan citizens went out to vote as part of this process that I started very early today in the morning. And they provided their cedula, their ID, in order to present it before the voting centers. The, the theme of the ID document was a record.
Record figure.
Talking about the electoral roll, we have information with Roberto.
Nicaragua has a population of 6.6 millions of inhabitants, of which 4.4 millions today were able to vote. We have seen a lot of the citizen participation on the Pacific region of the country, which is the most inhabited in this country, and also in the two autonomous regions, which is mostly inhabited by indigenous people. Today, the Supreme Electoral Council enabled 3,106 voting centers with 13,459 polling station votes. So the citizens decide the elections in this 2021.
Well, we already have information of how the electoral roll was formed. Let's remember that 4.4 million of citizens were participating in the voting. We have the transmission, right? We have seen the order, and we have seen, right, the gala for
Well,
Nicaraguans.
talking about all this electoral process prepared for this November 7, all the formulas participated, they went through a process to be candidates. What Nicaragua chooses today, it chooses the new president, the new vice president, deputies before the National Assembly, and deputies for the Central American Parliament. So we are going to have this preliminary information, and let's know who are participating in this 6 formula who are racing for a presidential. We are talking about Walter Espinosa and Mayra Arguello for the Constitutionalist Liberal Party. Yeah.
For Formula 3, we have Guillermo Osorno and Violeta Martinez. We have Marcelo Montiel and Jennifer Espinosa for the Liberal Alliance Party, and Gasparin for the Republic Alliance.
Well, the Liberal Party, we have Mauricio Orea Vasquez and Sobeda Rodriguez for the Independent Liberal Party. And also the Ayatama Party, which surged in 1986. And they are the 6.
And this is the organization of the 6 alliances, parties that are participating in this electoral process. The president, vice president, deputies, and the parliament deputies.
Well, we have Roberto Salina with more information about the confirmation of these elections. How the vice president are elected, because the deputy are also elected. Roberto Salinas gives more details about this.
The population also voted to choose the deputies for the National Assembly, a state body that exercised, well, there were 19 nationals and departmental deputies. among them 20 nationals and 70 departmental, and also 20 deputies to represent the country before the Central American Parliament.
Well, we have the process how these public figures have exercised their right, their constitutional right to their vote. We have at this moment some images of the General Secretary Fidel Moreno, who was exercising his right to the vote. And we have to highlight that the importance, right, of the women's participation and the sanitary measures that has been applied in every voting center, the quick process that has been done by the electoral council, and this is thanks to the new, right, to this new organization, which is
The General Secretary of Managua said that in this process was seeing an influx of people. He expressed that he was impressed by the participation, and he called on the people who didn't come yet to come closer, and he also talked to many people there in this voting center, and he very quickly exercised his right to vote. He also remarked that the unique ballot that is participating in this is very practical. It has all the information for candidates, and this gives a lot more easier the way to vote. It was very quickly. So we had the General Secretary of the Mayorship of Managua after exercising.
As the President mentioned a few minutes ago, the vote strengthened the projects that help the country, it strengthens health, it strengthens the education of the country. I want to congratulate to the Nicaraguan people who have come early in the morning to vote. Um, Actually, there are more hours left for the people to come to vote, and on the voting centers that I have been uh, accompanying because of my own, and I have seen that everything is going right as the functionaries are working well and people are coming in and the people are saying that everything is very quick, very efficient, and I can say that uh, this electoral process has been a success, and we hope that in the next hours more citizens come to vote, and because there is still time and we have to wait the night for the results coming from the authorities and see and consolidate peace, which is something important for the Nicaraguan citizens.
what is the importance of the young population?
I'm seeing many young people voting, and as well have seen the process, the prosecutors, young people working as prosecutors, giving information about how the process is going through. Many young people, old people, uh, members of the polling station boards are from different ages, and the participation of the authorities is 50 and 50, 50% women, 50% men. I have seen different poll watchers from different nationalities, more than 600 journalists involved in this process. There we have the declarations of the town hall secretary of Managua, Fidel Moreno. He was calling the population to continue to attend the different voting centers to exercise their right to vote. And now we have an interview with Raúl Obregón, who was the former director of the polling company M&M, who is going to give you a general panorama of these elections of Nicaragua 2021. Luis Urbina Alonso is the one who is going to give us more information.
Thank you, studio. We are in M and R place where Raúl Obregón is going to discuss about the process, the electoral process developed this November 7th. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for attending us. So, from your point of view, how could you describe the process of the citizens' participation during these 2021 elections?
We had also observed this behavior according to the polls 14 months ago, where the immense majority of the population, out of 7 out of 10, gave a lot of importance to their votes to decide, and they manifested enthusiasm to participate in this process. All this indicated us that the participation was going to be like in the last 30 years, and which has moved between 70 and 82. And we have observed today that effectively the participation is going to be more or less in the level that our poll were predicting.
We have to take into account that we have seen young people participation, and we have seen them. It means that the electoral roll has been increased. How would you describe that participation?
Well, effectively, here in Nicaragua, the vote is permitted after 16 years old. The segment between 16 and 18 years is the first time that they are going to vote, and this is a motivation because it's the first time. But more importantly is that young people, adolescents, feel inclusive in the different program. They have scholarship, support to be a professional. So it seems that all of this has contributed that young people feel motivated to participate.
From your point of view, how would you qualify the development of these elections, comparing the previous electoral processes?
Well, we consider that this election has been full of a great importance in the population, and they have expectations. Nicaraguan people, in the majority, 7 out of 10 Nicaraguan people has expectations, longs of prosperity, of advance. The country are we, the citizens. So having peace means that is a great factor to contribute of the inversion in this country. So the jobs will be abundant and will be in all the household, Nicaraguan household. So the idea is to go forward, to advance for the
And we have to
well-being.
take into account the pandemic situation, which is a very complex situation that affects all the population around the world. And we have to take into account that Nicaragua has worked, and we can see the interest from many people.
Yes, effectively. We we have to say, and we have to say this clearly, that the index of vaccination in this country is very high. According to our figures, most of the population is already vaccinated, and this is a very simple and very accessible process, so it's a good factor.
So this makes that the levels of increase, and we have seen the, the
Well, we have been
popularity.
observing during the last year, and talking about the 2021 and the stage of the 17, that we have a great participation, especially among this 18, 17, 18 years. They consider that this government has a great capacity of leading, and this make a high index of approbation.
So we're talking about that these surveys are developed in different societies, from work side to the small companies and big companies who find basically are working together to have
The
a
polls
Nicaragua.
are held in all the sectors, in all the fields, on all the territories, even the economic, all of them. People of the in all the levels of the society go these polls.
How would you describe this electoral process?
It's very gratifying to see the participation of the population, and we observe that the majority of the population has participated in this process or is still participating.
Thank you very much, Raúl Obregón. We are appreciating your your words, and we tell to the population that they are witnesses to see uh, the reality of Nicaragua's. A Nicaragua that wants peace and tranquility. So this is what we have from M y R Consultores. Go to study.
En estas elecciones generales, Nicaragua no solamente elegirá a su presidente y vicepresidenta, también son elecciones.
So we have legislative elections, 90 deputies, and national deputies and departmental deputies, but also the parliament deputies. So let's see how they are distributed.
In the case of departmental deputies, we have the following distribution: Nueva Segovia 2, Madrid 2, Estelí 3, Jinotega 3, Matagalpa 6, Chinandega 6, Leon 6, Managua 19, Carazo 3, Masaya 4, Granada 3, Rivas 2, Huaco 2, Chontales 3 in the central part of the country, Rio San Juan 1, Autonomous Region 3, and the South Caribbean region 2 deputies. This is according to the electoral demography of this nation.
Thank you, Roberto Salina, for this explanation about how are distributed the election of this deputy for the Parlacén. It's time for giving you more information about this electoral process, because it is still needed the preliminary inform and the electoral material that is taken to the National Accounting Center. We have Ronnie Davila in a center. So our correspondent Ronnie Davila has more details.
Nicaragua is going through the final stage of these general elections. All the Nicaraguans came out to vote this 7th of November. We were able to see this throughout the different reports from the JPMAS team, in which all the citizens of this Central American nation attend to the different polling stations. The polling station boards have started their close, and the citizens that are still in line to vote, in that case the voting centers will not close, as we have seen in different voting centers that continue opened, giving the chance to the different citizens to exercise their right to vote. Right now we are here at one of the computer centers of the capital, one of the biggest of this department, which is Managua, in which is receiving the information or the ballots from the District 1 and 5 of this capital. And we're waiting in a couple of minutes to start the transmission of the scrutiny in the nationals and departmental centers of the capital of the country. So the counting will start. The counting of the ballots of the election 2021 of Nicaragua, in which we were able to see how the citizens attend to exercise their right to vote and decide who will be the national authorities in this period 2022-2026 to continue strengthening the democracy, strengthening the right to the suffrage that the Nicaraguans has been exercising this 2021. The JPMAS team is all around the country to give more information about the general elections 2021 in Nicaragua. Thank you very much, Ronnie Davila, for that information. And we continue in Managua, in which Karina Cruz is giving us more information about this process, which is about the closing of the voting centers and the scrutiny.
Good evening, Nicaraguan families. We have in District 3 in the Bautista Belen voting center is already evening, and the population of Nicaragua is eager to know about the elections 2021, to know the president and vice president to be in the power in the next 5 years. So we have the coordinator of this voting center who is going to give us some details of how the process was and how the citizens applied the sanitary measures, if they were respected, and how the citizens were able to avoid COVID-19.
Good evening. Yes. To this voting center, one of the biggest of the district. Yes. The people respected all the measures of security. As you can see, there are some sinks where people wash their hands. There was alcohol. They apply alcohol on their hands. This part, of course, was really good. Regarding the concurring population, they just came and they exercised their right to vote, and we could see a
Civic
civic
process. So
party.
you said that they are in the
We are
counting process.
we're counting the act. We can see the authorities to count these
So
ballots.
approximately how much time are we going to get the
We hope that the
votes?
closing will be by 6 o'clock, hopefully, according to the manual of the Electoral Council. Okay, more or less in half an hour we are going to close the center with the final scrutiny, like the center.
So thank you very much. So we are going to cover and we are going to be in different voting centers to know the results of the Nicaraguan citizens and what was or who was their favorite candidate. So let's go back to the studio.
There we have Karina Cruz giving us information about the process, the closure process of the polling station boards, which are getting ready to start the process of scrutiny and to take the material to the. And after having all this scrutiny process, we will have the results of these 2021 elections. Lester Mendoza will tell us more information. Go ahead.
Well, we are in Solidaridad School, and we have seen that the tables are having the scrutiny of the ballots. So this has been a very moved day where the families, Nicaraguan families, have come to exercise a vote. So we can see the stability in this environment, the stability in each voting center, and how the sanitary measures have been applied in each center, and how the Electoral Council and the Health Ministry have applied in this voting center. So this is a historical process which is celebrated tonight, the elections 2021. And we are waiting the closure of the polling stations to know the preliminary numbers, figures. So this has been a very historical day, and the families, Nicaraguan families, exercise their right to vote, and these citizens, through the vote in the voting centers. So we have to stand out the abilities that these electoral policies prosecutors have to attend the Nicaraguan families in this electoral process 2021, which is being living in this country, Nicaragua. So we're going to wait and we're going to extend the news, what is happening, and in different polling stations in Managua, and how and what could be the results of these presidential elections in this country, in this Central American country. So let's go back to studio. Thank you to Lester for this report. So in a few minutes, we can see an important point, which is a computing center that is the National University of this country. So we have that important information to remind you how this process has been developed. But we have an instrument which is a backup, and this is the electoral calendar. In this calendar, we could see, right, the organization of the parties and how the process, the reforms and other activities
It was
are
all
employed.
a process in order to achieve these historic elections. The Electoral Council provided with all the material in order to make it successful. The Electoral Council, okay, had an electoral calendar to accomplish with each mandate. So now we have more information. We have a summary.
The electoral calendar is the one who says step by step how the national elections are being held. In the previous newspaper, the Gazette, and in the 17th of May was choose the order of the political parties to appear in the ballot. The members of these councils were proposed by the political parties and alliances participating in this process. On July, the mass verification process was undergone to make sure of the electoral roll. The political parties and alliances presented their candidates for president, vice president, national deputies, and deputies for the parliament. From September to October, it were presented the different members for the polling station boards, and after that they were sworn. After that, the political parties were certificate to take part in this process. Then on November, the national elections have been undergone since 7 in the morning on the different voting centers open for the citizens of this country. On the following 15th of November, the final results will be given. On the 25th of November, it's going to be the official proclamation of the elected. On January 9, all the deputies will take possession of their charges. At the end of January, all the spends that the different parties had will be given back to them. On February, the deputies elected for the Central American Parliament will take possession.
Well, we have expanded report that constitutes the calendar, the electoral calendar, which has a process, a civic process of these elections. So, as part of the electoral calendar, in July 24th and 25th, the Central American nation took a historical moment where population were verifying 2.8 million of people, of Nicaraguans, permitting electoral roll.
Yes, Mandy, in this kind of exercise to call so, Nicaraguan people have the chance to make changes in the domicile, and without any doubt, it was an exercise, a successful exercise, which the Electoral Council made, as you say, 2.2 million of inhabitants participating in this verification act. It was a chance for those all citizens to verify or to correct their domicile. More than the 95% of Nicaraguan people have ID document, which permit them to make many tasks, and mainly, okay, to exercise their vote.
We have some people. We can tell those people who didn't have their ID before November 7th. So the Electoral Council permitted to have all the IDs. So that's why the citizens are voting are exercising their right to vote with this document. To and this is part of the members of the electoral
This
line.
document was specifically done for this process for the population to exercise their vote. And for more information, we have Roberto Salinas on the other side of the studio.
That is correct. We are already at the moment of the closure of the different voting centers, which is, well, actually the first part of this electoral process has ended. So now the voting centers start the scrutiny to have the final results or the results of these elections. What happened after the closure of these voting centers? Well, the members of the different polling stations boards will make sure that there is not any people outside making line to vote. And after the vote, the members in front of the different prosecutors will make sure that any material will be left behind. After that, the different ballots are counted, then are put into a bag with tape to make sure that it's not open. After that, the president of the table will take the exact time in which this polling station board closed. And it's also something to stand out is that the supplementary document is not given back to the citizen who presented to vote. And also the name of the different prosecutors is specified in the protocols. And also the information of the ballots that were in blank, it's in this final report. And also the different political parties can have a copy of this protocol so they can have more documentation of
Very
the closure of
important
this.
to see that the electoral law, if there is no any sign or any these members and prosecutors of these polling stations cannot count or anything to claim for. So this is important to know because there are some prohibitions.
Yes, exactly. And the most important is that everybody is knowing, is aware of this process, of the rules, of the normative. And of course, the political parties have this information in their hands because the process of communication between the electoral council and all the parties was good. Okay, to continue, we have the final information, the scrutiny of the ballot started in different head town, and we have information from the west of the country with Karen, who is giving us information about the crossing.
Thank you, JPMAS Studio. Right now we are at the voting center in the Chinandega city, coming to the end of these general elections 2021. This process has been lived in a tranquility environment. All the citizens attend the different voting centers, exercising their right to vote, and which votes are going to give the results in a couple of hours. My name is Carmen Melendez, and the participation of the Chinandegan population, it's been incredible, and the way that the people attend to the different voting centers to choose the future of this country.
Thank you, Carmen. So we moved to an important place where the economy is very important for this Central American country. So we have an expanded version, expanded link.
Okay. JP Mas is in one of the centers located in the Insuna city in the Pedro Joaquin Chamorro School, where it's almost time to close the centers, where families came to exercise their right to vote. And we're going to talk with the coordinator of the center to talk about how this process was during the day. Good evening.
My name is Catherine Casco. I'm from the Pedro Joaquin Chamorro neighborhood. I'm the coordinator of the voting center 012. The electoral process have been good. Everything was in order. All people have came in with tranquility to exercise.
Were there all the measures oriented by the health ministry?
Yes, we have followed all the health measures to take care of us.
What is the importance, teacher, to have exercised the right to vote in this center?
Well, it is important because it is important to vote because we choose the president who is going to be in charge of the population of the country. And as a citizen, we have the right to exercise our vote.
Everything was in peace, no incidents.
Since yesterday that we came here, there were any incidents. Everything was normal.
Okay, thank you very much. So we heard the coordinator of the Pedro Joaquin Chamorro School who gave us details about the electoral process in this school, where everything happened with calm, where family came with wearing their mask, applying gel in their hands, and the electoral police applied their everything in order to prevent the COVID-19. So after they are going to go to the counting center. Good evening from Suna, Paola Centeno.
Thank you to our correspondent from this department of Nicaragua. And now we go to the north of Nicaragua, to Esteli, in which Danny Tercero is going to give us more information about the closure of the voting centers in that city.
Good evening. I am Dani, and this is the center, the parks, the central park of Esteli. So during the day, we didn't have any problem, anything against Esteli families. So this is thank you to the police because the whole day were secured by the police to have a order electoral process. So that the families participated in these elections 2021. This is to exercise the right to vote. So all the voting centers have been taken the sanitary measures, such as the national police spread. So we are waiting the national population, the Esteli population, and moving to the central park to know who could be the president of the republic. So thank you very much, and go back to the studio.
There we have the report from Esteli, and always in the north of Nicaragua, we have in Madrid. Jorge is ready to give us information about how these electoral centers are ready to take the ballot to the counting centers.
Good evening. I'm Jorge Daniel Castellón from the municipality of the Sabana. We're about to finish the journey of the voting process. Today we were having a lot of influx of people on the different voting centers, and we are almost finishing and closing the voting centers. The voting centers are ready to start the scrutiny process. And here in this municipality, we can see the population that they always respect the health measures, as well as the members of the polling station boards, well, gentle and polite for the citizens, taking care of the older people, pregnant women. We had a lot of influx of young people who were coming to this center. In this municipality, since it's a rural community, there were some vehicles to take people from their houses to vote to the different voting centers. Well, there we have the environment that different cities in Nicaragua are living right now, in which different voting centers and police stations have started to close, and they are following the different steps that we have explained before about when the voting center have to close, um, in which that no material have to be left behind, and all the materials have to be put into a bag and seal the bag. All these steps and all this is established by the law, and it was shared with the different prosecutors by the Supreme Electoral Council previous to these elections, making sure that these members have the rules clear.
Well, it's interesting how we saw Madrid, which is a department that is in the north of Nicaragua, is in the frontier of Nicaragua. They also have communities, rural communities, and these people also they go out to vote, and probably okay, all these ballots are going to take some time in order to take them to the counting centers. But we have to take in account that everything is automatic, and probably okay this evening we are going to have a preliminary result of the electoral council.
And that's right, and the majority have closed the scrutiny of this polling station. As an important element are the documentation of the auxiliary documents, which is or very important because this is the Nicaraguans' participation. So this is organized with the scrutiny. So we have the electoral materials, the ballots. We have a lot of elements that they have to take care.
And all this personnel is highly trained.
So, as you said, Madrid, which is a border part of the country, but so since everything is on digital, so we're going to close this transmission, but please be pending the next few hours to share what the report could be. The first preliminary report of these elections, Nicaraguan elections
Okay, be pending.
2021.
At any time, we come back with you.